of angle F, which is right here. Okay. So opposite F is the 6. I'm going to put 6 over the sine of F. And then the other side length they give me is 16. The angle opposite that is 115. Notice we're going to have obtuse triangles, and that's okay. All right. So once again, I'm going to multiply. Cross multiply. 6 times sine 115 equals 16 times sine F. I'm trying to solve for the sine of F, so to get rid of the multiplication by 16, I divide. That'll cancel out the 16. I go to my calculator, and I do 6 sine 115. All right, gives me the 5.4378. I then divide that by 16. Oops, didn't really want to do that. And I get 0.3398. All right, when dealing with angles, go to 4 decimal places. All right, so the last decimal place is 8. After that is 6. So the sine of F from the calculator work is approximately 0.3399, because after the 8 is a 6. So when working with finding missing angles, all right, so when you're finding angles, go to 4 decimal places, all right, when you're cross multiplying. All right, so now they're telling me that the sine of F is 0.3399, all right, which tells me I'm going to use inverse trig. All right, so remember to do that. I hit second first. Second. All right. Since I'm using sine, law of sines, that's what we're going to do. So the sine -1 should show up, and then the 0.3399. And it gives me 19.87. I follow my directions, and directions said to round to the nearest tenth. So I look at the tenth place, the number after it's greater than 5. So my final answer would be 19.9 degrees. All right. So that's how you find a missing angle using law of sine. Any issues thus far? All right. Going once, going twice. All right, so let's flip to the back. It says use law of sines to find the values of x and y, round to the nearest tenth place. All right, so this, ladies and gentlemen, is what is considered solving a triangle. So later on, if it tells you to solve a triangle, that's what it means, find all the sides and angles. All right, so myself, this is what I would do. I would see the 60, 75, realize the triangles add up to 180. All right, so I would add these together. 60 and 75 is 135, and then subtract, meaning my missing angle would be 45 degrees. Okay. Now, this is the one side they give me, which is 12. Okay, this is the one side they give me, which is 12. I'm going to put that one in the middle. So that's 12 over the sine of the opposite angle, which is sine 60. And then I'm going to put x and y on opposite sides. All right. Y is opposite the 45 degrees, so I'm going to go sine 45. X is opposite the 75 degrees, so I would put sine 75. Everybody understand all that? All right. So now basically you're going to treat it just like the proportions on the previous page. There's just multiple ones. So if I start over here, I'm going to multiply y times the sine of 60. So y times sine 60 equals 12 sine 45. All right. We're solving for y. We're multiplying by sine 60. The opposite of multiplying is dividing. So sine 60 on both sides. Cancels out the sine 60. All right. So now I go to my calculator, and now I'm just going to evaluate. So 12 sine 45 divided by sine 60. And it gives me the 9.79 that I had before as well. All right. So it says round to the nearest tenth. So y equals 9.8. All right. Now I'm going to solve for x. So it's 12 sine 75 equals x times sine 60. To get rid of a multiplication by sine 60, I divide. I divide both sides by sine 60. All right. So I'm going to do 12 sine 75 divided by sine 60. And I get 13.38, which if I round to where they wanted to, x equals 13.3. All right. Everybody's good? Any questions? All right, so now I'm looking at number 8. All right, the difference with number 8 is one of my variables is an angle. Okay, so the 18 and the 110 are opposite each other. They're neither of them are variables, so that's what I'm going to put in the middle. So 18 over the sine of 110 equals, all right, 10 over the sine of x. All right, I'm going to hold off on the y because we don't know what that is yet. All right, so 18 sine x equals 10 sine 110. Again, they don't have to be acute or right angles now. They can be obtuse. I'm solving for sine x. Sine is being multiplied by 18. Get rid of a multiplication by 18. I divide by 18. All right. So 10 sine 110. Enter. Divided by 18. Again, we're going to go to 4 places. After the 0 is a 5, so I'm going to round up. So the sine of x equals 0.5221. All right. I'm going to go back to my calculator. I'm going to hit the second button first since I'm finding an angle. I'm using sine, so there we go. 0.5221 And it gives me an angle of 31.47, which rounds up to 31.5. So x is 31.5. All right. To then get that angle, I'm not going to use law of sines. I'm simply going to use the fact that angles of a triangle add up to 180. I'm going to take the 110 and the 31.5 and add them up. That gives me 141.5. And subtract that from 180. I get 38.5. That means this angle is 38.5 degrees, which is going to enable me to get y. You can either pick your newly found 31.5 if you'd like, and the 10, or you can go back to 18 and 110. It's not going to matter. So 18 over sine 110 equals y, the missing side length, over the sine of 38.5. All right, I'm going to multiply 18 times sine 38.5. All right. So I'm going to cross multiply 18 times sine 38.5. I'm going to divide that by the sine of 110. And I get 11.9. All right. When you do this, ladies and gentlemen, that is what I need to see, your initial ratio and your final length, or your final measurement. If you want to show me all the equation solving, you can, but that is optional when you do it for homework tonight and into tomorrow. This part is optional, showing me all that work. All I need to see is this, the initial proportion you set up and then your final answer. All right? So everybody understand thus far? All right, so a couple word problems. So a surveyor measures the angle to the top of a hill from two different points in a valley. The angles, the measures, and the distances between the valley points are shown in the diagram at right. What is the distance from point B to the top of the hill? Round your answer to the nearest hundredth of a mile. So this is what we're trying to find, that distance. All right. These, ladies and gentlemen, of course, form a linear pair. So I'm going to subtract from 180 to get my 155 there. All right. 10 and 155 is 165. It means that angle is 15 degrees. Why is that important? Because that's the one side length they give me, and I want to get the angle opposite it. So I put 1 over sine of 15. I'm trying to get that segment there. So I'm going to call that A since it's opposite angle A. And the angle opposite is 10 degrees, so it's A over sine 10. So 1 over sine 15 equals A over sine 10. All right, I'm going to cross multiply 1 times the sine of 10, and then I'm going to divide that by the sine of 15. And I get 0.6709. Mm-hmm. Notice it is not drawn to scale. It looks bigger, but in fact it's smaller. How do I know that? Because the angle opposite is 10 degrees, and that's 15 degrees. So even though it looks longer, it's not drawn to scale. And it makes sense to me because the longer side should be opposite the larger angle. 15 is opposite the 15 is 1, so opposite the 10 should be smaller. All right. The other word problem, 2 Coast Guard ships, the Alpha and the Beta, are 3,000 feet apart. The angles formed from a line between the Coast Guard ships to a disabled ship are shown in the diagram at the right. How far is the disabled ship from each Coast Guard ship? Round your answers to the nearest foot. Well, that's the ship Beta, so I'm going to call that B. That's the ship Alpha, so I'm going to call that A. 45 and 35 is 80. Subtract 80 from 180 and I get 100. All right, since I have both the angle and the side, I'm going to put that in the middle. So 3,000 over sine 100 equals, all right, alpha is 35, so sine 35 over A over it. And on the other side, it's going to be B over the sine of 45. So that's what I would expect to see when you show your work, that ratio. And now I'm going to cross multiply the solid. I'm going to do 3,000 times sine 35, divide that by sine of 100. All right, so I do 3,000 sine 35, and then divide that by the sine of 100. And I get 1,747.27, since it asks me to round the nearest foot. I will do that, so 1,747. And then I do the same thing to get B. I'm going to do 3,000 times the sine of 45 and divide that by 100. Divided by the sine of 100. And I get 2,154. All right. And again, that's all we're looking for you to do. All right. And one last problem to finish off for today in triangle ABC. Let the measure of angle A is 30. The measure of angle B is 80. We're applying to each value to the nearest tenth. So here's my triangle, A, B, and C. It says BC is 50. It says A is 30. And B is 80. Again, I would find C right away because you never know if you're going to need it. It's a pretty straightforward way to do it. 30 plus 80 is 110. Subtract that from 180 and you get 70. We're trying to find AC, which would be little letter B. All right. So B is opposite the 80-degree angle, so B over sine 80 equals, the one side they give me is 50. That's what I'm always looking for, the side of the angle. The angle opposite is 30, so sine 30. All right. All right. You don't need to show me this, although I would suggest it, that you show me the triangle, but that's up to you. All right. You can do that on scrap paper. Again, I'm going to cross multiply, so the 50 is going to be multiplied by sine 80. You'll do 50 sine 80, and then divide that by the sine of 30. And it says find each value to the nearest tenth place. So B equals 98.5. All right. Does anybody have any questions at all? All right, well, I remind you tonight when you do start this homework's due tomorrow at midnight. All right, we're gonna have B, make sure you show me this. You have to show me the proportion you use, okay? So you have to show me the proportion you use. I would suggest drawing out triangles, but again, that's not gonna be mandatory. All right, so if you look at tonight's homework, all right, you'll see it looks a lot like, all right, what we just did. So for 1 through 6, all right, they're giving you the information. 7 through 14, they're giving you the diagram. 15 through 17 are some word problems, but they're giving you the triangles, so that shouldn't be that bad. And then 18 through 21 are just like the last one we did. All right. So that's basically what you're doing. Again, you need to show your ratios and proportions in order to get full credit. That's all I need to see is your proportions that you set up. Everything after that is up to you, what you want to show. All right. All right. Well, then, if there's nothing else you need, that's what you're going to work on tonight. Again, tomorrow we'll do the second part of this, which is area of a triangle, which will be really short. All right. If anyone still owes me part of the 2-day quiz from last week, but those grades are now up. All right. I still have to add the extra credit from the Wednesday before we left, but that'll be in a separate column, so pretty much everything up to date. Does anybody have any questions? If not, you're good to go because the bell's about to ring at 9:35. All right. Welcome back. Happy New Year to everybody. Be safe. And we'll talk to you tomorrow.